course, that was an old favorite, Frank Zappa, one of the best guitar players who ever lived. And he had a lot of politics I agree with and some I don't. But that song definitely hits it. So welcome to Liberal Buzz Show. My name's Denise Dory. I'm your guest. I had two guests that were going to call in or appear, and one's in the hospital and the other one's still on vacation with his wife. So, because he just left office, I'm talking about Ross Mercarimi. I'm in touch with his campaign manager who sent me some texts and some statements about, but he didn't tell me his plans for any plans about the cannabis community, his future in the cannabis community. So, but he did a lot of good things while he was in office as a supervisor for the cannabis community. Now, I was joining some friends last night on my way to the police commission meeting, and I saw at least a dozen cops looking dressed to kill, or maybe even defend against hostile space invaders. I mean, they were really armed to the teeth, and they were lined up all along the block. I mean, I posted it on Facebook, and sorry about that. Yeah, but they were just blown away by it. My photo, I think several people shared it. I didn't expect to see this many cops, and so we went to the police commission meeting, and there was a lot of shouting going on. You see, they're lined up all the halfway down. It was over by Bodecker Park, so they were showing a huge presence. I guess the police officers association are kind of in control of things right now. They're running a lot more, and even now the sheriff's department. So that's really messed up. That's got to stop. So we'll get back to this in a minute. I want to tell you that there were at least a dozen cops, and it turned out they were heading to the same place I was, which was I was heading to the Mario Woods with the Mario Woods people. We were the Justice for Mario Woods, giving public comment and more. And so they were really out in force. It even looked like there was a police helicopter, and there weren't that many of us really that turned up. So there were 3 cops for every person in the gymnasium, which the Salvation Army gymnasium, which is they filled it up with off-duty police officers. So yeah, it was strange. They wanted to support the 5 officers who shot Mario Woods, who, by the way, was only armed with a knife, as you remember, and probably was having a mental episode. They shot him 6 times on December 2nd, and they've yet to be disciplined. There's independent investigations have been called for by the Board of Supervisors and others. I suppose the chief of police. Well, anyway, the Police Officers Association called for a crowd of off-duty cops, and so we lined up for public comment, and it wasn't long until an officer commented that the Woods' death was justifiable homicide. And after that comment, the 100 or so officers left. They all walked out together, and it was just the beginning of the police commission meeting. So, yeah. The meeting had, the police commission is tasked now with rewriting the San Francisco Police Department use of force rules, which have been in place for 20 years, since 1996. So, and by the way, those 5 officers' service has been modified. They're still being paid. They haven't been fired, but they've been their service was modified. So there's a public hearing. I'd giving a shout out to the community to please attend. It's set for the new use of force rules for the San Francisco Police Department, one started a few minutes ago at 1339 McAllister Street, and the next one hearing will be on the 26th of January in the Bayview at the Bayview YMCA at 1601 Lane Street, Lane Street, Lane Street. So now let's get back to this use of force. As you see in the graph on the right is the San Francisco police use of force, and the bar graph is higher than all of the rest of them put together per officer. So it's been going on for decades. It's a sort of like a culture of impotence. And the Police Officers Association, they're mighty, they're powerful, they're very powerful. So, it's like it took a newspaper to compile the use of force records through public use of force through public records requests to learn the San Francisco Police Department has a group of violent officers, a core group, but I'm not saying they're all like that, but there are a group who shouldn't work with the public, and the reason they are is because there's no sort of an oversight to to compile the evidence against these officers, and so the Police Officers Association endorsed Vicki Hennessy for sheriff, and of course she's not going to tolerate dissent, which is protesters at City Hall who protest are not. Well, I'll get to that later, but not enough progressives voted for Ross Mercarimi. Ross tolerated political dissent. I loved how during his last hour of sheriff, he allowed protesters to loudly heckle Ed Lee being sworn in by the Governor Brown, as mayor, and they had to shout at each other to hear each other being sworn in. And after Willie Brown blamed Ross, blasted Ross. Of course, he's the media, one of the media's favorite whipping boys, and but Ross did allow peaceful protests and loud ones at that. That's okay. There was no violence, but there were a few arrests there. I didn't go. I meant to, but it would have. So our new sheriff will communicate with ICE, which is the Immigration Customs Enforcement. So immigrants, all bets are off. They're going to start breaking up families. And also, the Police Officers Association is now joined with the new Sheriff Hennessy, of course. They endorsed her, so why wouldn't they be? And she was also endorsed by the private prison industry. Ross wasn't. So that tells you something. So in December, the Police Officers Association, who opposed they opposed shields. Those were proposed as defense against knife-wielding suspects. So, also in December, the San Francisco Police Department tightened its rules around pointing a gun at a suspect, also opposed by, you guessed it, the Police Officers Association. So, should the cops shoot a fleeing suspect? Well, kind of like my dad was shot by the police because they didn't chase him down. They just shot him. He was unarmed and running away, and they shot him in the back. So that, every time an officer pulls their gun, they have to report it. Those are according to the new SFPD rules about pulling your weapon. And they have to articulate the reason for pointing the firearm. Marty Halloran, the president, who used to be the treasurer way back when, of the Police Officers Association, opposes it. He opposes having to report officers pointing their guns, saying tasers save, and he also says the tasers save lives. So, And bless Supervisor David Campos. He's the greatest. He says that de-escalation needs a fundamental change. Now, de-escalation is sort of like maybe, for example, those Swedish cops that were on vacation in New York. Instead of pulling weapons, they were, of course, they were tourists. They just grabbed somebody who was having a mental health episode somewhere in New York and just grabbed him and held him so he couldn't move and talked him down and then let him go, you know. They even stroked his head like a kitty cat. I think that might help. They had a technique and it worked that time. So and our officers could learn from that. De-escalation. See, and uh, Mario Woods, he had a mental health episode. Of course, it seems like he was having one. And the police and jails aren't equipped here in San Francisco aren't equipped to handle mental health patients, and even the hospitals are barely equipped. They don't have beds for them, and we don't chase fleeing suspects. We might shoot them, you know, before we. It's just there's countries that think we're crazy here in America the we're just gun crazy. Cops are gun crazy. We're just you know. The Second Amendment is practically the only civil right we've got left, and that except when the black people started to try to carry guns, and then they had to have gun regulation. I remember that back in the 60s. So, see, the cops are unarmed in some countries. Of course, I lived there and I saw it. The cops didn't have guns. They had dogs. They weren't adverse to having dogs, just no firearms. So they had other ways of dealing with suspects. And so de-escalation is one of them. It depends on the country. Australia, Sweden, those are two of them that I know for sure don't have guns. There's a lot of them. I think the English, too. And there's a saying. I mean, why are the police think they have to be so afraid of us? I mean, a society that will sacrifice liberty for security deserves neither, and will lose both. That's a saying from Ben Franklin, and that was a long time ago. Come on, let's catch up with the past. I mean, most parents know about de-escalation. They get their kids to stop their tantrums. So I mean, humans have tantrums too. So we got to. The Police Officers Association have lots of money, power, and influence, and now they have more power with Sheriff Hennessy, the new sheriff, and protecting a corporate agenda. And not us as much, really. Do you feel? Well, we'll see how. I mean, she just got in office 2 weeks ago, and Ross Mercury, of course, didn't attend her inauguration. Now let's go back a little ways in history. In 2006, HopeNet Dispensary, which by the way used to give away a lot of free medicine to patients, were trashed by Marty Halloran in an illegal raid, because HopeNet they seem to be complying with the law, the cannabis laws, and their crime seemed only thing they wouldn't like was giving away free cannabis, which that wasn't illegal either. They're about to try to make it illegal. So I think that's always bugged people, that poor cannabis patients get free medicine, which then they don't even get much. And so the dispensaries that give away free medicine correspond to the ones that got shut down, and the laws are starting to point away from. Out of all the new laws coming out, by the way, it's hard to support any of the laws that aren't giving away free medicine or allowing patients to collectively grow for each other and give away free medicine. We're not asking dispensaries to give it away. We're just saying, patients, please let us grow for each other to save each other's lives, because they're finding out this stuff does a lot for people, cannabis. So I'm not getting back to cannabis yet. I've still got to talk about at the end. If there's time, I've got my other guest, Deborah Tharp, was going to be calling in or appearing, but she's in the hospital with her kid. So, and I think they just got out of the hospital, and they're going through a little bit of but he's getting better, luckily. So, see, back in '06, when Marty Holleran raided HopeNet, Campos, we were so shocked that Campos, David Campos, who was then police commissioner, came to our meeting, Axis of Love meeting, and I took videos of him saying that Marty Holleran should be removed from raiding dispensaries, either on different detail or perhaps resign. And I put it on my TV show, and which I've been broadcasting here for just about 10 years. So it was on my pre-recorded show called The Axis of Love Show. And David Campos then was on the police commission. Nobody'd really heard of him outside of a few, people that were activists, but he became well known later. After this, there was an article in the San Francisco Bay Guardian that Campos, it was on TV that Campos was at our meeting asking Marty Holleran to resign from the police force, or at least not be able to raid dispensaries anymore. And it's probably still on YouTube. It was on YouTube, and I put it on the TV show. And the TV station picked it up. I saw it on TV. I go, oh boy, the first year I'm broadcasting made the major network. I was over the moon. And so, but not probably for the wrong reason, but at least, hey, it's kind of morbid the way the media, we in the media get our stories and gloat about it, huh? Sorry. So in '08, the rest is history. David Campos won the election. He stood out as a progressive, standing up to the cops who were bullying dispensaries. And San Francisco can pay for a Super Bowl 50, but not to take care of mental health patients. Let's just let that soak in for a minute. San Francisco were millions of dollars in debt or paying, and Santa Clara County, they're being reimbursed something like $7 million, and San Francisco we're in the hole for $4.5 million, and we're getting zilch, and we don't even have the space. It's going to crowd the city so bad. How are we going to get around on the buses? It's going to be real hard to get places on the bus. So yeah, you better stock up with food and stay home and watch TV until it's over. It's gonna be hard to get a phone signal. I can't imagine what it's gonna be like. Really, I live right downtown. Woo. But so, see, Silicon Valley, they ignore their homeless. They have one of the biggest homeless encampments in the country over by some river, even though they probably chased them all out, and they're probably still chasing them around. They're chasing them up to San Francisco where they can eat at Glide. That probably, I know that happens, and for a fact. So Silicon Valley, they're one of the richest counties in the country with the most homeless people, and they're buying our government too. So that's kind of mean. The progressives were in power for a while, and we chipped away at their power a little this last election, but so they're being reimbursed, Santa Clara County. So I mean, I don't know. I'm just sounding off about it. Let's see. There's about 2 minutes left. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about Ross Mercarimi, and now the ICE is going to be reinforced. Vicki Hennessy, the new sheriff, is going to be communicating with ICE, and that means that your family, any undocumented family member, your house could be raided in the middle of the night, and your family member could be taken away. So you should have voted. That's all I can say. You should have voted for Ross. He was progressive. There's nothing I don't know what we could do. I mean, the Board of Supervisors had a resolution to protect the undocumented from being, if they're detained, from being communicated with ICE to, so that policy is in conflict. So we'll see see how it pans out, because it's very an issue of extreme concern. Now Ross is having a nice vacation with Ileana. I wanted to talk about his many accomplishments on on a future show when he gets back. We'll do that, and as I've been in communication with him and his manager, and now see, a lot of our viewers live in the Bayview, and voting for Ross would have been in their best interests, but the media unfortunately assassinated his character instead of going after Enrique Pierce, who is now out on bail, who, remember the child porn scandal, and no mention of that at all. So that's disappointing. Now, next show will be, let's see, February the 19th. And Psychic Frank will be next Thursday at 5 p.m. And please adopt a shelter pet. Buy a street sheet. The writers it's excellent writing in these street sheets. I read them all the time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.